When it comes to Super Street the game, a lot of you guys will realise that this is a project that I've actually put a lot of support behind. I've actually tried to be as positive as I can because I want this game to do well. The community needs this game to do well because as fans of action arcade racing games, you've got to be honest, we don't have much choice. There is a distinct lack of variety when you compare our genre to a genre of, say, open world action adventures or first person shooters. People who are invested and interested in those genres generally get a major release every, say, what, 3 months? Maybe 3 or 4 big titles every single year. And the main reason for that is because there are so many different franchises to pick from, all working on their own individual release cycles. If you look at arcade racing, or action racing as some people like to call it, Forza Horizon once every 2 years. A new Need for Speed title once every 2 years. The first Crew game came out 4 years before the Crew 2. So as you can see, we are pretty much starved, we are pretty much down to the bare bones. It's almost like we have to go through a fasting period before seeing another quality title come around. And if that next release is not what people want it to be, doesn't measure up to expectations, or is severely lacking in gameplay in various areas, then that is potentially another 2 or more years wasted. So what we need is another contender. What we need is another franchise just to keep the plate spinning, to keep people's appetites whet. And for all intents and purposes, my hope is for that to be Super Street the game. I mean, look at it, the amount of customization, the heavy focus on aftermarket, real life manufacturer brands. That core element of the game is kind of like a throwback to the Need for Speed Underground era, Midnight Club, even Juiced. And from a personal point of view, I'm really enthusiastic about it. I like that idea, but I'm not a fan of just doing a remastered version of an old game. I don't like that idea, but I do like the idea of a new game being built off the premise and foundations of what many people consider to be the golden age of arcade racing. The big problem I have with Super Street the game is the fact that there will not be an open world free roam element. There is not going to be the ability for you to roam around the streets doing whatever the heck you want to do in the streets. The game is going to be centrally focused around events, okay? So you're going to be given an event that you need to participate in, which is going to be on a set designated area of the map. On completion of that, you're going to have the ability to go on to the next event, and obviously in between that, you're going to be able to go back to your garage, customize your car, put modifications on it, upgrade it, whatever you want. Unconfirmed, but I expect there's more than likely going to be a fair share of CGI cutscenes here and there, but that is a basic overall structure as to how the game is going to work. Now here's the thing, the franchise is called Super Street the game, and for the very small handful of you who do not know this, Super Street the game is based off of the real life car magazine Super Street. Now Super Street the magazine's main focus is not futuristic concept cars, it's not IndyCar, Formula 1 or any other type of professional racing, it's mainly street car culture. You know, the kind of things that me and you are into. Now when you think of street car culture, there are certain elements that come to mind. Car meets, entourage cruising, and competitions, you know, drag races, running a quarter mile, all that stuff there. Now that's just a small selection out of a large pool of elements, but there's a good argument to suggest that those are the core fundamentals of what you would consider to be street car culture. People who followed that magazine and who have done for years are from that walk of life. The question is, how on earth do you translate those event types, those bits and pieces, those core elements into a game that doesn't have an open world to facilitate that? Maybe I'm not making myself clear, so let's put it in a more practical sense. So you spend what, an hour or so building up a car that in your mind is brilliant. It's powerful, it's fast, it's aggressive, it's mean looking, dirty fat rear wing, stupid looking diffuser. You've basically modified the crap out of it. One of the first things you're going to want to do is take it out of your garage and go and show it off. You're going to want to go and find other people in the world, see what they've made, meet up with them, you know, and compare cars, especially as this game is so heavily reliant on customization being its core element. Or let's look at it from a performance standpoint. You've just done a massive engine swap. You've taken out a V8 and replaced it with a V12, which you can actually do in Super Street the game. You want to test that horsepower, right? You want to test the 0 to 60 time, you want to test the acceleration, you want to see the top end of its peak performance, the top speed, but you don't want to just see a relative number that pops up in your garage. What you want to do is you want to test it in real life circumstances, or as close to real life as possible. You want to take it out into the open world, find a long stretch of straight asphalt, or tarmac as we call it here in the United Kingdom, and just give it the full beans for a quarter mile or half mile or however long you want to keep your foot down on the pedal for. Or let's look at it a different way. Maybe you're artistic, maybe you're creative, maybe you're someone who likes to do cinematics, someone who likes to do rap designs, make beautiful creations, and then take them out into the open world and film it from all sorts of different camera angles. Come on guys, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We've seen so many content creators do it, except you can't because there's no open world in Super Street the Game. All of the above that I've just mentioned you can't do because there's no open world. Super Street the Game, more than any other game, should have the facility to do the things that you can do in real life street car culture. It goes without saying, it really does. Look, I'm not saying that you won't be able to have things like drag races against other players, okay? I'm not saying that you won't be able to have some sort of street-based competition, but the difference is that it will be in a controlled environment rather than having the ability to do what you would expect, which is to be able to do things off the cuff, outside of the rules and regulations of what the game wants you to do. Freedom! Now, mind you, I'm only using drag races as an example here, as a reference point, but here's what I want. I don't want to have to select a specific game mode or go into a specially created event that has been made for drag racing. No, I want to be able to drive out into the street, meet up with a couple of my pals, cruise the map, find a long stretch of road, maybe an airport, and then just have our own drag races with our own rules and our own craziness and whatnot. The social, relaxed, cultural element of streetcar culture. That I don't want to have to go into an option screen and click a special mode called Tug or Tugay. Always get the word confused. Tugay mode. I want to be able to go into the street, hook up with 4 or 5 people and just drift around a map, or find an area of the map, maybe an abandoned warehouse cargo type place, and just drift around it. I don't want to have places designated for me because there's no open world that allows me to explore myself. Do you see where I'm going with this? I hope I'm painting a clearer picture here. I'm really worried about this, like really worried about it, because the type of people that you've got that are going to come and buy Super Street the Game based on the brand itself are the types of people who come from that walk of life, that are used to that. They're going to be expecting those elements in this title more so than they would The Crew or Need for Speed, because that is the kind of sort of culture that the magazine has built up for itself. The customization, the engine swaps, all that is there, which is good. That's really good. They've gone balls to the wall on that, which is great. But streetcar culture isn't just the customization, it's the street and openness and the freedom aspect. The big irony here is that the game which has probably emphasized this aspect the best, or probably done the best representation of what I'm trying to portray here, is a game that doesn't even fall into the racing genre. GTA 5. People building up their cars, cruising around Los Santos, drifting, drag racing, going to the airport, chilling, lining their cars up in the car park, individually walking around inspecting each other's car in first person view, before an idiot just decides to blow the whole damn thing up with a rocket launcher. That part obviously doesn't happen in streetcar culture, but you get where I'm coming from here. Now, as most people would know, building an open world format in a game is a very challenging and difficult task to undertake. It's not something that could be done easily, it's not something that could be done in a few months, it takes years, and it requires a lot of resources, a lot of money, and a lot of manpower. The last part, manpower, that's probably the area where the developers on Super Street the Game are lacking. We know it's a small developer behind it, and yes, they have brought other people in to help them, okay? So for those of you who are about to start screaming it's Team 6, it's actually not just Team 6. I need to go back and do some research on this, but part of the team that they're working on now has actually worked on a previously big franchise. I'm not sure what that franchise was, whether it was Project Cars, Need for Speed, I'm not sure. I need to go back and research that. If you know, drop it in the comments. I might have mentioned it in my last video. In fact, I did mention it in my last video. Go back and watch that. Nevertheless, the team still isn't of the capacity to be able to handle a fully fledged open world. So because of this, there are only 2 things I can suggest to rectify this. The first is that there needs to be a constant stream of content coming on a regular basis, okay? You have to make sure there are loads and loads of events coming out on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly basis. You want to do the sorts of things like that Ivory Tower was doing with the Crew 1 in relation to the Wild Run event, and what Forza have got with the Forzathon. You need something to keep the plate spinning, to keep people engaged. Now, I also want you to make good on your promise. Now, when I use the words you and you're here, I am specifically addressing Super Street, the game, the developers, the good folk over there. When I had the pleasure of interviewing you guys a couple of months ago, you did state in that interview that you are willing to take community suggestions in terms of the type of content the game will have going forward. Now, as with all community feedback and suggestions, there are going to be things that are feasible and there are going to be things that are borderline ridiculous. The point is though, I want you to make good on that, I want you to move forward with that, and I want you to incorporate that as one of your core and fundamental elements for Super Street the game going forward. If people have ideas for event types, race types, various types of competitions, I want you to take that on board and I want you to implement it, because at the end of the day, the only way that Super Street the game is actually going to survive, if I'm honest with you, in terms of longevity, is if you allow the community to shape the game. Within reason, within reason. The second point I'm going to make, and this is the most important, and to be honest, this doesn't go out to the developers because they have no control over this. This goes out to the publishing company. Do not get your pricing wrong. Do not get your pricing wrong. Do not price this game out of the market. Look at what happened to Onrush, a concept that didn't have prestige or history. It was the first of its kind in what it was trying to do, but it was given a premium price. A premium price. People are not going to spend premium money on something that has either bad reputation or no reputation, or is missing key and fundamental elements upon what they would expect. You need to make sure you get your pricing right. Now, here's the thing, I do know there aren't going to be any microtransactions. They've already gone on record as saying there will not be any loot boxes, there will not be any microtransaction and whatnot, so that's a good thing. But if Super Street the game comes out at the same price that, say, Forza's Horizon series, the Crew 2, or what you would expect to pay for a AAA title such as Need for Speed, that could be a real problem, especially given the fact that Forza Horizon is actually coming out, what is it, a month, maybe 2 months after? Yeah. Onrush launched at a premium price, and within 6 weeks it was reduced by 35% in the PlayStation Store within 6 weeks. Its UK ranking was what, number 34 in its first week or something like that. It did abysmal. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't just because of the pricing, there just wasn't much interest in the game, but had that been at a more consumer friendly price, I'm pretty certain they would have moved more units. Now, there are those of you who will argue with what I'm saying and turn around and be like, oh yeah, well, you know, they need to make a profit. Well, of course they need to make a profit, but how do you make a profit on a product that doesn't sell? Yeah, so that's it. That is just about all I've got to say on this matter. It's something that a lot of you guys have asked me to talk about. I wasn't hiding from it. I just wanted to put a little bit more thought into it and put together something which is still constructive and will hopefully move this game forward in the right direction. Right, this is where you start to play your part. In the comment section below, I want you to start listing the types of events, the types of content that you would like to see in Super Street the game going forward. Start listing it as individual comments below, as I will be touching base with the development team and having a quick conversation with them via email to give them the feedback firsthand. And yeah, other than that, I'll see you when the next video comes out. Take it easy, peace.